All right, Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon, everyone. So we'll begin shortly by this webinar by the first moderator, which will be joining in a while. Yeah, please welcome Brother Khairil. Sorry, Brother Khairil, we couldn't hear your voice.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalatu wassalamu syafi'i anbiya muslimin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good day I wish to all of you. Welcome to our forum in this wonderful afternoon. Before we proceed our forum, let's begin with Umul Kitab Al-Fatihah.
Guys.
Okay, as we all know, this is the part 2 in conjunction with Arabic for specific purposes and English specific purposes program. And of course, we are here to discuss, to share, and to learn the issues together by sharing beneficial and interesting ideas, which will be delivered by our guests today. We would like to highlight a topic that is quite interesting to be discussed in our forum, that is English for specific purposes in different fields of work. I'm sure that every one of us has our own interest in this topic. Ladies and gentlemen, our format for this forum, we are going to watch and listen to 3 different fields of the discussion or forum that will be conducted
Webinar
with a different panelists. And a friendly reminder to our most welcome audiences here during the forum, audience. Okay, can you hear my voice?
Yep, now can.
All right, okay, again. So ladies and gentlemen, our format for this forum, we are going to watch and listen to 3 different fields of the discussion of forum that will be conducted by a different moderator with a different panelists. And a friendly reminder to our most welcome audiences here, during the forum, audiences are not allowed to interrupt during discussion or during presentation by our panelists. And during the Q&A session, you can either directly ask a question or write it down inside the chat box or any other related medium. I would like to mention also, as a moderator, I will try my best to manage the time so that we will not drag other panelists' time to discuss their own topic. Okay, without any further ado, I would like to introduce to our panelists today. Okay, so that's mean I have to introduce 3 of the panelists, our guests, special guests. For the first session, you will listen to Madam Zalina Kemat, the Senior Lecturer of College Polytech Mara Batupat, Malaysia. For your information, actually she is one of the IIUM alumni. I don't know, I'm not sure which batch, I think 1996 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, IIUM, majoring in literature, is it? Okay. All right, and then for the second session, okay, actually for the first session, the moderator will be me. I will conduct the discussion about the importance of ESP for advertising purposes. So that would be the title for the first session topic. For the second round, okay, we will listen to Dr. Muhammad Matni, okay, English lecturer from Islamia University of Rawalpindi, Pakistan. Welcome, Doctor. Thank you for joining us for today's forum. And the topic for the forum today, for the second session, is learners, skills and language development for the success of tourism and hospitality industry. So for the second session, it will be conducted by Brother Muhammad Farouk, one of the graduate students MTESP. Thank you for joining us, Brother Farouk. And In our last session, last part of the forum, we also will watch and listen to Dr. Rashminda Kaur, Senior Lecturer from Technical Foundation, University Kuala Lumpur, MIAT. Welcome, Dr. Rashminda Kaur. Thank you for joining us today. And the topic that she will discuss or to share with us is English language needs of aviation personnel, fulfilling the fast changing demand of the industry. So for the last part of the forum, it will be conducted by Nurul Iziana, okay, also one of the postgraduate students at MTESP. So ladies and gentlemen, so before we begin to discuss about the topic today, that is the importance of SP for advertising purposes. So the question that might be arised by most of us is why English is important for advertising purposes. So as we all know, many languages across the globe have limited vocabularies, synonyms, and homonyms, but then English has comparably more, making the advertisers easier in terms of choice of word and meanings. Different advertisers can interpret brands using the English language in multiple ways. So to discuss about the topic for the first part of the session today, that entitled The Importance of SP for Advertising Purposes, let us begin with the first question to our panelists. Okay, Madam Zalina, how are you? So you pretty today, eh? So I hope you feel fine and joining for our discussion. All right, so my first question is, as our industry in this country has gone global since the modernization era, our advertisement industries have been exposed to the influence of the English Western styles in writing in an advertisement. Since then, some of the modern Malaysian copywriters also use the Western styles in writing the advertisement. So based on the issues, what are the effects on Malaysian advertising and how multinational advertising agency in Malaysia play their part in this matter? Okay, so can you please share? Yeah, thank you very much. I can't hear you, Dr. Madam. Sound check, sound check. Still can't hear you. Izzy, can you hear?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now can. Yeah.
Now can. Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you for the questions, Brother Khairil. As we know that Malaysia is actually a country which have been colonized by British in our history, correct? And it's actually a good question when you ask about how multinational advertising agencies in Malaysia itself play a very important role in promoting products to the public. Okay, Malaysia has always been open to the modernization, especially to the Western country. In fact, Khairil, Malaysia, due to its historical past, has always been receptive to changes and influences from the West. Also, at times, Malaysia appears to develop in tandem with the West. The effects really of the Western style advertising on Malaysian advertising was not only to reflect, but also to encourage the mindless imitating of alien lifestyle. When I say alien lifestyle, it could be because we have a different culture in Malaysia and we have a variety of races and cultures around us. So over the years, there have been calls actually, particularly from the public sectors. Okay, I should quote that public sectors would preferably referring to the government sectors for advertisement to reflect a Malaysian flavor. When we say a Malaysian flavor, it covers all the different kinds of culture, needs, and races in Malaysia. The images created in advertising have very little relation to the local environment. And what the government hopes will be achieved in the society is something, the communication, the language that you can put everywhere in the billboards, okay, in the banners, at shops, whereby it can unite the community itself. Okay. There is a certain degree of mindless aping of bourgeois values and styles of the middle and upper classes in the West. However, in the Western imagery of lifestyles, it's superimposed on locally produced goods as well. In Malaysia itself, there is a strong dominance of multinational advertising agency in Malaysia. It is a reflection of the political and economic environment of a multiracial country that has to reconcile sensitive racial and economic issues without undermining the status quo in Malaysia itself. And in addition, local practitioners, we can see local practitioners in the advertisement industry still have a very long way to go before their practices and professionalism could compete with multinational agencies. It is therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it's not surprising because managers of multinational advertising agencies are usually graduates or West trained, whereby Malaysian recruited into the large multinationals are largely useful bridgeheads with politicals and business connections. Okay, and whereas other staff are also usually trained abroad or acculturated on the job. And when you are working at the multinational advertising agency, that is usually the case. And consequently, indigenous culture tends to be largely unknown quantity to expatriate and tends to be abandoned as old-fashioned by the local recruit bent on adopting the values held by the management. Therefore, in addition, multinational advertising agencies also use imported concepts and commercials. The argument for using imported materials was that it costs more money to create locally. One stage, about 80% of imported commercials came from the United States or Britain. The social concern was that these imported commercials had nearly all Caucasian imagery and evangelized foreign trends, norms, and values, which largely ran counter to the indigenous social and cultural sensitivities. Now, clash to cultural invasion is borrowing the term resulted in the government policies for Malaysian identity in Malaysia in advertising. As a result, I think multinational agencies force know the indigenous consumer better. Nonetheless, some may take the easy way out. Example, Johnson & Johnson, a huge multinational agency with a big market share, notes that there are advertisers who adapted overseas campaign in which copywriting becomes mere translation. So I would say that international advertising agency will play a very important part in the style and trend of Malaysian writers.
Thank you very much, Madam. It was very refreshing and very enlightening for most of us here. Sometimes we don't know much about what happened in our current advertising in this country, but yeah, it's very good knowledge sharing from you. Okay, so that makes us move on to the next questions. Okay, so my next question is, in advertising, the nature of the field is to deliver the messages, and we are also aware that the advertisement that come from the Western country are sometimes using English words that are not suitable in our country, especially when it comes to Malaysian identity. I hope you understand, madam. Okay. All right. As an Esp practitioner, what is your opinion about the challenges to the Malaysian advertiser?
Okay, as maybe a majority of the audience know that Malaysia is a multiracial countries whereby we have adapted to many different kinds of languages, and I think I can say that most Malaysian can at least major 2 or 3 language a part of their mother tongue. Okay, so one of the challenges to Malaysian advertiser is to communicate to its audience in as many as at least maybe more than 2 or up to 5 different languages. So the national language is, of course, Bahasa Melayu or Malay. So, but however, generally Malaysia accepts the diversity of its racial mix and allows each ethnic group to use its language and practice in their own individual culture. And culturally, there is no major difference except on one matters relating to, of course, religion. Okay, so my opinion about how to face the challenges based on the current situation, of course, I will referring back to our Malaysia policies. As Islam is the main religion, there are controls regarding some explicit, okay, I would say explicit advertising products ataupun or products, for example, the alcoholic beverages with explicit content. So the government efforts to Malaysianize the explicit content so that it will not harm any sensitivity or to any races or religion in this country, and the advertisement have produced some interesting results actually. Okay? Advertising contents and productions in television and radio have largely been Malaysianized. Okay? The government's efforts have fallen short to the private newspapers and magazines, whereby they still cannot control what the private newspaper and magazines have to put in their advertisement as well. Right. Now, the concern is about the cultural invasion to the point of the Malaysian context. Okay? The concerted efforts in promoting a Malaysian identity reflect the Malaysian government's recognition of the potential of advertising as a powerful communication. Okay, just now, in your first question, I have already said that advertisement is usually used as tools in order to unite, okay, the community in Malaysia. So its intervention in the mass media allows the government to control the flow of information and to stimulate greater communication within its nature, its nation itself. Now, the effects that have been towards formalizing a set of rules and goals that have a common Malaysian consciousness is still by far in progress. Okay. Now, the situation in Malaysia as advertising is borrowed from from the West. Advertising is not actually common in Malaysia, but we are greatly influenced by the Western. Now, as a consequence, Malaysian advertisements have developed from a foreign language perspective through translation and adapting what the Western culture and with the Western language into what we call Manglish. For example, DGSC cinema advertisement that promote sambal burger as the headline with eat fine at sambal. The mixture of English and Malay in the headline, the tagline itself, and also, for example, the Western Long John Silver advertisement with the headline. When it comes to Malaysia, Long John Silver advertisement becomes also can lah. Okay, you see the word lah at the end of the headline and enriches the Malaysian culture itself. Okay? It is fair to point out that the concern with the effect of advertisers not following English grammatical rules, yes, it's very much alarming. However, English copywriters also can handle innovative and creative through their conscious
Excuse me, your voice like fading out. I don't know why. Okay, check again your microphone. Oh, still we can't hear you.
What about now?
Is it? Can you hear?
Can you?
Right. Can you please repeat the 2 minutes before current time?
Oh, it's about. I think I left you about the Manglish on the mixture of English, the Western form, borrowed words from Western language to the English to the Malay words. Okay, the Manglish, right? So in terms I was discussing about the grammatical rules in the headline of the advertisement in the tagline. We could say that Manglish used in the advertising could contribute to actually to make Malay language more dynamic. Okay. Back to you, Khairil.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam. Before that, I would like to say welcome to all the audiences who just joined in. I think the audience become more and more. I think that because of I don't know, maybe we can see that many of them coming from College Polytech Mara. I don't know whether this is your students. Maybe your fans, maybe. Okay, and also the question is already coming in into my WhatsApp. But I still promising the organizer that we're still going to manage the time. I will accept 3 first question, and then Madam Zarina will ask a question after the forum, and then we move on to the second session. Okay, we have to respect the program and the time duration given by the organizer. Okay, this may already have the 3 questions. So, okay, so let's move on to the next question, Madam Zalina. Okay, since that the persuasive strategy is very important in Malaysia, who use English in advertising. Okay, so my final question is, how to make sure that the way of Malaysian advertisers translate English to Manglish will not be mistranslated? So what is your opinion, Madam? I still can't hear your voice, Madam. Wait, Madam. Can you check your voice first?
Can you hear me?
You can't hear it? Okay. Check. Okay. Easy. Can you hear?
Can you hear me? Is it loud enough?
This one's louder. Yes, this one's good. Very good, this one.
Okay, thank you. It's a good question, whereby we know that what could be people could translate ataupun or what we say interpret words differently from other people, and generally in Malaysian advertisement they were more information sensitive than impression creating. The humorous effects of suspense creating techniques are usually avoided, and understatements are rendered in terms of strong statements. Social constraints are usually respected, and taboos, especially in Malaysia, we are very sensitive to certain area of in our life, are usually avoided, reflecting compatibility with the target cultural models. Okay? The producer or the copywriter does not sound certain about what is promising, suggesting, or predicting. However, with the persuasive strategy in Malaysia, it makes the producer sounds less biased and allows the consumer more mental space to interpret, to process the information offered. So this is different, the different reader between processing the strategy of the advertisement. So copywriters tend to play with words. Okay, the underlying meaning of words which will be open to interpretation to the public. The question arises as to whether the translator's behavior varies according to the type of the product advertised. So it is shown that within the same genre of translator, behavior fluctuates with respect to the product. To the product that the company is trying to sell. It makes an interesting observation in that in advertising, translators should be aware that there may be genre internal types of variation that govern the translation practice. The factors are associated with potential readers or the product itself. Okay, depends on your target. Your target consumer, the target audience for the advertisement or for the product itself. Now, the Malaysian government's concerned regarding advertising as an awareness institution. Okay, there are kinds of advertisement whereby you have commercial product and then you have non-commercial product. Okay, about the awareness, and then it shapes people concept of how the world operates and what kinds of life or community that worth living surrounding you in Malaysian community.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Zarina. Okay, like I mentioned before, okay, I'll try to do my best to manage time, because already 2:34 already. Okay, so I already received questions from my personal WhatsApp, which is from College Polytech Mara students. They're really interested in advertising. I think most of them coming from advertising field, diploma in graphic design, study the subject of copywriting. I think because that is why maybe they ask this kind of question. It's coming from Alisha. So, Madam, why is informal English language used in advertising? This is from the student. Why is informal English language used in advertising? Informal English. What do you think? Informal language. like speaking street language, I don't know. Okay, maybe that's kind of language. Okay, what you mean?
Thank you, Alicia. Yes, instead of, if for example I ask you, instead of talking atau talking formally in formal language, which one you prefer? You want prefer to talk formally or to talk informally? Okay, this is actually the case of advertisement. Okay, consumers are actually looking for brands that are real. Okay, real, which is close to their heart, close to their lifestyle. Okay, so with wordplay or witty and casual phrasing, marketing language is becoming more and more conversational. Okay, talking directly to the customer instead of above their head to project a knowledgeable and professional image. So it is easier to use informal language. Now, to get the attention of the people or to make advertisement memorable, attractive, enjoyable, trustworthy and creative, there has been a use of several linguistic devices in the language of advertising. Okay. The term glamorization is probably the most common technique of all. Instead of saying that the house that you want to sell is old houses, okay, maybe you want to use adjectives such as charming, cheerful, characterful, or unique, or maybe small. The word small you want to change into not just small car but compact car, snug and manageable. So this kind of words which looks trendy to the current community. For example, if you open a cafe with a pavement table, you may want to rename your brand or your cafe to a trattoria. Okay, or instead of just a small restaurant, you maybe want to call it a bistro, for example. Okay, so if you have not enough room to serve, maybe you want it becomes a fast food servery, for example. So okay, the decor itself, okay, maybe you know that it can become chic, okay, unique, stylish, provincial, and we have many more informal English language that can be used to attract your audience. Okay, is that good, Alicia?
Right. So actually, coming from my personal WhatsApp, and again from WhatsApp also, from also student Politek Mara, is there any loan word? Is there any loan word from English language in Malaysian advertising? The loan word, bahasa pinjaman in Malay, I think so. Any word from English language in Malaysian advertising? It's from Faris, from Faris Ahmad.
Okay, thank you, Faris. We have lots of borrowed word or loan word from Malay to English, from English to Malay. So this could be seen the use of foreign brand. Easy to see in the use of brand. Okay, brand advertise a brand for the company product. Okay, for example, okay, Fumikila. Okay, it appears to be in Malay. Okay, but it is actually a foreign brand. Okay, it has all the signs of a loan word. For example, the word Fumikila. Okay, the insect killer comes from the word fume or fumigate. Okay, and the word killer is actually is a loan word from derived from the word killer. So, and it is sold in a spray can, so you can kill insect or mosquito. So, although the significance of the brand naming is as in the example, may be lost majority to consumers' foreign brand names. Okay, maybe it's common. Okay? However, this common foreign name has become usual. Okay, usual to other Malaysians. Okay, from various level of people, they can freely say the word from killer brands, other brands such as K-Free, Stay Free. There are lots of foreign names. Okay, now the wider dissemination of meanings and messages may not necessarily be understood by all. However, this is where advertising becomes the part and parcel of culturalization and socialization of consumers itself.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very good answer for me. Okay, I hope the student can learn from it. Okay. And final question also from my personal WhatsApp from Dalila Politek Mara. Why English language is important in advertising? This is a simple question, I think. General question from Dalila Politek Mara. Okay, so what do you think, madam? Why
Uh,
English language is important in advertising?
English language is a global language. Okay, especially we can say that all over the world people are using English language itself. Okay, and language itself is a very powerful, has a very powerful influence over people and behavior. So this is especially true in the fields of marketing and advertising. The choice of language to convey specific messages with the intention of influencing people is vitally important. Visual content and design in advertising have a very great impact on the consumer. But it is the language that helps the people to identify the product and remember and make it memorable for them to keep buying it. Now, the English language is known for its extensive vocabulary. This is why English language is commonly used in advertisement. Even if the headline is in Bahasa, you can still see one or two words in English, common words that people can easily understand. So there are many other languages which are in the world, but we are usually confined to one or two words which carry a particular meaning. But English is different. The English may have more than two or three meanings for a certain words. So these meanings may differ very slightly and in a very subtle way. So it is important to understand the connotation of a word. So connotation is the feeling of ideas that are suggested by a word rather than the actual meaning of the word. For example, when you use the word blissful, for example, maybe you can use the word blissful to convey something which is relaxed. The feelings, the emotions, steady emotions, in a good mood, and so on. So this the target audience, of course, also puts its own meaning into certain words. So different people sometimes interpret words differently in many different ways. So mass media also, when reporting news items and marketing advertising personnel have to consider the emotive power of the words they use. They have to make decision about what to communicate and what to withhold. So one way in which advertisers adapt language to their own use is to take compound words and use them as adjective. Okay, this is one of the examples. The compound words actually later on becomes widely used in normal situation. It became common to Malaysians. For example, the word top quality, economy size, chocolate flavored, feather light, long lasting, to name a few. Now, the language of advertising is, of course, normally very positive and emphasizes only why on the product stands need to emphasize on why the product needs to stand out in comparison with other products. Okay, and advertising language may not always be correct. However, may not be always be correct. However, it must be targeted right through the consumer itself. Okay, do I answer the questions?
Okay, so I think already explained all based from the question given. Okay, so it's already 2044. I think that's the end of our session. So to conclude the discussion for this topic, okay, I would like to say that advertising texts are chosen to form the bulk of the source data text. For this presence, advertising texts are a type of authentic text with authentic language and prevalent with the community, and one which produce a language as is used in the community. Okay, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you very much, Madam Zelina, for joining us until the end of part 1. Okay, so I give the floor to second moderator, Miss Ediziana. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you so much to Brother Khairil and our first respected panel speaker, Madam Zalina Kamat from College Polytech Marabatu Puhat, for sharing with us a very interesting inputs in for advertising English. So my name is Nurul Iziana and I'll be the second moderator for today's session. And let us move on to the second session that will address the issues of aviation English. So, but before that, let me briefly introduce you to our second speaker. So our second speaker is Dr. Rashminda Kaur. She is a senior lecturer of the English Language Unit from University Kuala Lumpur, Malaysian Institute of Aviation Technology Campus. And Dr. Rashminda has a vast experience in the field of English language teaching, curriculum design and development, as well as language testing. So without further ado, I would like to invite our respected guest speaker, Dr. Rashminda Kaur, to start her sharing and presentation on English language needs of aviation personnel, fulfilling the fast-changing demands of the industry. Please welcome. Sorry, Dr. Rashminda, we couldn't hear your voice.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, now it's very clear.
All right. Thank you very much. So just a minute, yeah. Right, so my name is Rashminda Kaur, and thank you to the moderator, Miss Iziana, for the introduction. Right, so without wasting more time, I will just proceed with some sharing on the topic that we are discussing today, which is about the English language needs of aviation personnel, right? And we're going to, I'm basically going to explain about some of the skills and in demand, right, for the aviation personnel serving in the aviation industry in Malaysia. So before I begin, right, I just give a brief introduction about aviation industry in Malaysia. So as we all probably know, the industry started, right, evolving after the Second World War. Initially, there was a joint collaboration between Malaysia and Singapore, and after the separation, so Malaysia started working on improving their aviation landscape in terms of investing in airlines as well as in manufacturing companies in Malaysia. So that also has brought a drastic change to the global aviation industry, and also has brought in more investors to build manufacturing companies as well as to bring in aviation facilities to Malaysia, right? So that has also somehow resulted to the importance of aviation management, right, which we can see whereby we have a very good aviation management system in Malaysia, right? We have our Sepang Aerocity, yes. Sorry, Sepang Aerocity, and also the Regulatory Department Malaysia, right, which is basically recognized in most of the Asian countries. Right? So the aviation management is basically overseeing the proper functioning of all aviation entities, operations and businesses, and also ensuring that all operations, right, because it's aviation, it revolves around safety of passengers, right? So all operations should be in accordance with the international and local regulatory requirements and regulations. So it's not just confined to Malaysian law, but aviation, basically we have to abide to the international law as well, right? So with that also, aviation education, right, became something that the stakeholders were investing in, right, because it was a need, right, to increase the manpower that was required to serve the local industry. Right. So when I mentioned about stakeholders, basically these are the aviation stakeholders, right? The main aviation stakeholders, right? The airlines, and in the airlines, right, we have the respective crews, right, or personnel that basically serve, right? The airlines, and for MRO, right? These are the airlines. MRO stands for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Basically, this industry is the organization, right, or the department that maintains, right, or they are the ones who will ensure that the aircrafts are airworthy and they are meeting the standard operating procedures. So in terms of operations, right, maintenance, repair, and overhaul, MRO companies are the one who are basically overlooking it. Then there's also the air traffic control, right? This is definitely an important component in aviation aviation industry, right, or aviation management, because air traffic control is basically overlooking all the operations, right, that is basically involving the air travel or air traffic, right? So this is also a department, right, that ensures that all the air communication or is handled safely, right? Now moving on, there's also the manufacturing industry, right, which has also been developed well in Malaysia, and of course they play a significant role, right, in the industry, because they ensure that, hold on, yeah, ensure that the local industry, right, the local Malaysia also supports, right, the needs of air transport or the demand, right, from the at least from the Asian countries, in terms of building certain parts of the aircraft, and also facilitate helping in terms of developing or doing some research and development in the areas of aerospace design, right? And also the training organizations, right? Basically, training organizations help in training, right, the manpower that is required to enable the aviation industry to run well. Right, so there's flying school, air traffic academy, aerospace faculty, engineering training department, and I believe that most of us have heard about this. Right, so most of the time, whenever we hear about aviation, right, we are very much in the thought that aviation only revolves pilots and air traffic controllers, but they actually cover different aspects as well, which is airlines, right? They basically airlines are basically catering to transporting of passengers, right? And they also deal in transporting of goods, cargo goods, and there's also civil and military aviation. So it's not just about pilot and air traffic communication, right? When we talk about aviation, right? There's also manufacturing that is involved. There's also air traffic control. There's also manufacturing as well as training, right? So as today, these are the ESP courses that has been developed, right? So there are quite a number of ESP courses that has been developed. So if you look at studies that has been done, right, there's ESP courses that has been developed for pilots, air traffic controllers, aircraft maintenance engineers, cabin crew, ESP for ground handlers, for management, aviation management personnel, as well as for service desk or check-in counters, right? So I believe that English is definitely not going to, the status of English will not change, right, as the global lingua franca, because that is important to unite all the nations or the states that are basically communicating, right, with regards to aviation matters. So there must be a language that connects all states, right? So if you look back, or we trace back at the history of aviation communication, right, there is also there's also trace of countries that use their native language. For example, in China, Mandarin was being used before. In Middle East countries, Arabic is being used before. The Russians still use Russian language, right, for aircrafts that are traveling in their airspace. So there is a tendency to use the native language. However, due to the numbers of cases, right, that numbers of incidents that occurred, right, and these incidents were investigated, and the most significant factor or contributing factor that was reported is due to the language reason, right? So therefore, ICAO, which stands for the International Civil Aviation Organization, right, they came up with the requirement for all pilots and air traffic controllers to undergo tests, right, to ensure that they are basically they are basically operational, or they are basically ready, right, to communicate, right, when there is any emergency, or even not necessarily only for emergency, but it is also for daily or routine communication, right? Apart from the tests, right, ICAO also suggested training, right? For example, yes, ESP training should be made compulsory, right, for pilots and air traffic controllers to improve on their speaking and listening skills, right? So moving on, right, now, basically, the language used by the personnel working in the aviation industry, right, is very much focused on the area that they are working on. So it's highly focused on, for example, air traffic controllers. They basically use the standard phraseology, and also pilots use the standard phraseology. Engineers also use the standard phraseology. But there was a need, right, to ensure that all the personnel, right, are able to also communicate, and they are also able to respond well if they are put into non-routine situations, right? So as we all know, also aviation is a narrow angle, high contextualized field, right? So therefore, instead of just picking aviation English, right, for all groups of aviation personnel, ESP, English for Specific Purpose, was selected by ICAO, was recommended by ICAO, I'm sorry, right, to be used in deciding or in developing the courses that are required by the groups of personnel, right? So why ESP became a choice was because different groups of personnel may have different needs, and the needs may not necessarily be the same, right? Especially when they are working in different parts of the world, right? So the needs may change, right? For example, when you are working in the Malaysian airspace, perhaps the air traffic controllers may not need to use, I mean, the needs of them to use standard phraseology is much more important as compared to using plain English, right? But in other countries, perhaps the use of plain English is much more significant as compared to phraseology, right? So in every different country or in every different organization, right, they definitely need to study the passengers, or they need to study the routes that the airlines are traveling to, right, to enable them to communicate well with the other parties, right? So it's not just about air traffic controllers. So whether if it's ground crew engineers, right, they will also sometimes need to communicate with personnel or with pilots that are traveling from different country into their region. So they may need to communicate. So in the instance of, like, for example, Myanmar, right? If you go to Myanmar, there's a study that says that the ground crew are unable to speak in English. So what happens is you will have to get a translator to come in between to translate whatever you are saying. So in the case of Malaysia, it's still not too bad, because our students or the engineers or technicians are basically trained, right, in high school, right up to high school, and also in their institutions, right? So they can actually speak English. At least they are operational at level 4, right? So therefore, ICAO suggested that there is a need to go through all the 5 levels of designing, right? The ESP course, which is the based on the IDs model, the needs analysis, the design, the development, the implementation, as well as the evaluation stage. Because we just cannot pick any English course or English course that is meant for pilots and air traffic controllers and conduct those courses, right, in Malaysia, because it may not be necessarily the same, right, or it may not be fulfilling the needs of our local crews, right? So we must ensure that whatever needs that whatever the air traffic controllers, pilots, engineers, or management personnel need, right, is basically aligned, right, with the industry or with the current state of the country, right? So moving on, right? Now, this is basically some of the points that I managed to gather, right, when I was working on my study, right? So there was a series of I mean, I had brought in a few textbooks, right? Aviation textbooks to show it to some of the industry personnel, and when asked, right, what are their comments on these materials, right? So these are basically some of the highlights, right? Some of the important points that has been highlighted by the respondents, right? So the suggestion of using ESP, whereby you develop your own materials, right, which will be much more appropriate, right, to the target participants, to the individuals that are learning the course, right? Why is because in terms of practicality of the subject and content, right? So if you're going to teach them about aircraft engineering or maintenance engineering, right, you will have to definitely introduce them to the local scenario rather than giving them the impression of Heathrow Airport, right? So they may not see they may not understand, right, the importance of you or the importance of them improving on their language skills, right? Because the subject and the content are not related to their future companies or the companies that they are going to serve in the by the time they complete their studies, by the time they graduate. Now, in terms of language functions also, this may not necessarily be the same, right? So they may need to use other functions as what is being listed in the textbooks that are currently available or currently being distributed, right? In terms of skills also, like I said just now, because ICAO has only implemented ICAO has only mandated the need for pilots and air traffic controllers to be tested. And the pilots and air traffic controllers basically need to only be tested on their speaking and listening. So not all the skills, not the receptive skills, or not all of the skills is basically covered, right? It's just the speaking and listening skills. In fact, listening skills is also embedded, right, in the speaking test. So it's not tested in isolation, but rather is combined, right? And also in terms of the activities, right? So it is very important, right, that ESP, right, takes into consideration of or being used, right? The ideas of developing new course for the target learners, right, is very important, right? So some of the issues, right, besides the findings from the textbook selection will be the points that has been discussed here. Hold on, yeah. All right. So some of the issues will be to look at the emphasis on critical communication English skills. So most of the training organizations or most of the training schools that are based in the airline or in the aviation organizations such as the airport training school or the academy of the airline training school, right? What do they cater for is just to ensure that the trainees are equipped in terms of their knowledge, skills and abilities, right? But they do not actually look at tackling the part on the critical communication skills that the trainees may need, because if they are put into situations that are non-routine, how are they going to deal with the situations? These are also a very important skill that must be mastered. So for example, when we encountered, right, the pandemic phase, right, so many staffs were being contacted, engineers were being asked, right, how do they cope, right? So they probably need to be able to express themselves well, because those who probably survived, right, are those who are not only good in their jobs, but they are also good in managing their communication skills. So in terms of the exit interview that was conducted, most of them have problems in their critical communication skills. They're not able to talk about their problems, they're not able to solve problems. So therefore, they had difficulties communicating with the management. Now, next is the integrating of critical communication skills in the ESP course. So basically, the critical communication skills is not being focused, right? Most of the time, the focus is more on teaching the skills that are required, right? Rather than focusing on the critical communication skills, and also on problem-based learning, right? So because the personnel, right, like I said, they are not just the air traffic controllers and pilots. So when we look at other aviation personnel, such as the engineers, such as the ground crew and the cabin crew, right? So they sometimes need to communicate with the management. They sometimes need to communicate with the passengers. They need to make announcements. So they must be also able to use their problem-based or their skills, right? That can help them in problem solving and also in negotiating, in managing of their communication. Right now, as for the part of the instructors, right, there's also issue on needs on having instructors that are needs knowledgeable instructors. So most of the time, right, instructors or trainers, right, they feel that they are not capable of teaching ESP for this group of personnel, right, because they feel that they need to be a subject matter expert in aviation English. But in the case of aviation English, you need to basically understand the scenario or the needs of the personnel, right, in the workplace for you to be able to teach, right? So when you claim that no, I'm not an aviation expert because I am not a pilot, I'm an air traffic controller, no, right? So you can actually develop your knowledge, right? ESP teachers should also try to put themselves in the position of the learner. So in that case, you have to always keep yourself current. The trainers, right, have to keep themselves current and find out, right, how they can actually increase the cooperation between the training organizations and the prospective employers. So with that information or with that cooperation, probably you can get more information of what is required by the industry, right? So some recommendations, right, will be to adapt authentic materials, right, because this group of personnel, right, they depend a lot on manuals, bulletins, annexes, right. All these are examples of materials that are used, right, in and out of the lives of the aviation personnel, right. So these materials, right, should be actually adapted and be used as course materials. And besides that, training for all personnel, right, regardless of whether pilots, air traffic controllers, engineers, or cabin crew, or ground crew, or aviation management personnel, all of them should basically undergo the training for the receptive and productive skills. Right. Besides that, the teaching, right, should be focused on the task-based, right, especially in the Malaysian industry, right. The government is urging, right, to increase the number of manpower, and as we see that most of the airlines are fiercely competing to ensure that they survive, right, or they pick up, right, from after the pandemic, the effect of the pandemic. So the manpower, right, that is being prepared should also be prepared in terms of being able to handle the tasks, right, not only the task that revolves around the job, but also the communication task that they will need to be able to demonstrate, right? And also on the trainings for language teachers, right? So ESP training perhaps should be something that is considered, right, for all teachers or trainers that intend to join the aviation department, right? And lastly, revisiting the ESP curriculum, right? So for the aviation for us to keep up to the aviation industry's needs, right, or requirement, communication requirement, right, is very important to revisit the curriculum and assessments that are being used at least in about every 2 to 4 years, right? So that's all that I have to explain, right? Iziana,
All
should
right.
I
So
proceed with the questions?
Yep. All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Rashmina, for your informative and insightful sharing. So now, without further ado, let us start with the Q&A session. So here I have gathered like 3 to 4 questions, okay, from the audience and from my side also. So let us just move on to the first question. So as you mentioned earlier, that we know that there is a need to teach aviation, phraseology, and plain English in an integrative manner, but this perception might differ among non-native speakers who are working as pilots or air traffic controllers, which they mentioned that the use of plain English is not needed as phraseology would have sufficed. And this is actually based on the studies conducted by Kim and Elder. So they also claim that phraseology is underutilized due to the widespread belief that plain English should be the default medium of communication. So the question is, how would you respond to such claims? And does this circumstance observed in Malaysian context?
All right. To answer this question, right, I basically have to explain about why communication sometimes can be misleading, right, if plain English is to be used. Right. So first of all, right, inaccuracies and vague instructions, right, is something that tends to happen when plain English is used instead of using the standard phraseology. So pilots and natural controllers, right, are allowed to use plain English, right, if the discussion is involving non-routine situations. However, right, the response that is being given, right, sometimes may be inaccurate, right, because it does not actually address what the controllers are asking or what the pilots are asking for. So to avoid that, right, therefore, the use of standard phraseology is still deemed very important. Besides that, pilots' inability to memorize the instructions. So in the case that whereby the controllers are using plain English, right, over the standard phraseology. So instead of using standard phraseology, they are using plain English. Now they will probably this will probably cause, right, the pilots to be having some problem in responding, and also to understand the instruction, what more to memorize what is being said, right? Because that even though there's readback, right, but because of the choice of instruction is being delivered is in plain English and not in standard using standard phraseology, so it may also result to pilots not having the ability to memorize the instructions. So my take is that it's very important, right, to only use plain English, right, when you are communicating on non-routine but situations that does not involve emergency, right? But however, like I said just now, right, we try to tend to advise our controllers or pilots to use standard phraseology, right, to avoid inaccuracy or vague instruction, as well as to enable the pilots to take the instructions and follow the instructions carefully. So that's all.
Right. So that is a very clear answer indeed for the first question, so that we know the use of plain English is for non-emergency situation, and ICAO on the other hand is to avoid inaccuracy. All right, so that is a very clear answer indeed. So let us now move on to the second question. So as you have mentioned also in your slides earlier, you mentioned about the ICAO, like the language requirements and all. So in line with the requirements by the International Civil Aviation Organization, Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia has implemented language proficiency requirements for all traffic controllers and aeronautical station operators, which I believe like this is conducted like around the globe. So the question is, how comprehensive is ICAO in determining the language competency of aviation personnel? And is there any unresolved issues, problems, or challenges in its implementation in Malaysia?
All right. So I will explain according to your question, yeah, right? So in the first part here, ICAO has mandated that all states, right, to abide to the requirement, right, on the English language proficiency. So how it's being implemented is basically depending on the state itself. right? So over here in Malaysia, we are basically being governed by the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, right? And CAM has imposed the requirement, right, for pilots and air traffic controllers, right, to be tested periodically. So this also depends on the organization's choice. So some organizations have the requirement whereby the level 6 holders, right, the IQ level 6 holders does not need to be tested, right, once they've been granted a level 6. Whereas there are some organizations that actually have the requirement for pilots which achieve level 6, right, to be tested perhaps in about 4 to 5 years, right? There are some organizations that require pilots, right, to be tested every 2 years once, right, if they were to achieve level 4. And so if they achieve level 5, right, they will probably have to repeat the test, right, the ESP test, which will enable them to be operational or to fly the aircraft, right, every 3 years. So similar case is for the air traffic controllers. Yeah, so it actually depends on the organization of when they will want to, or how frequent do they want to the test to be conducted, in order for them to ensure that the safety or the organization complies to the safety requirement, right? So how comprehensive is IQ in determining the language competency of aviation personnel? So in the document 9835, right, IQ has briefly mentioned that apart from air traffic controllers and pilots, all other aviation personnel, okay, must also actually have some sort of test or some sort of standard, right, that they follow in order to ensure that all maintenance personnel or aviation personnel are able to communicate in English, right? So whether they are going to choose to use the IQ rubrics, right, in assessing the personnel, right, which these are these are the ones that are not mandated. Yeah, so the maintenance engineers, the aviation maintenance, the aviation management personnel, the cabin crew. So whether they're going to use IKO rubrics, right, to assess this personnel, or they're going to use CFR examination to test this personnel, is totally depending on the organization. However, the organizations are being audited, right? So they will also need to ensure that the test that is being used actually meets, or it's it actually is recognized by the authority, meaning it's recognized by IKO and CAM Malaysia, right? So in terms of imposing the importance of tests for other groups of personnel, right? As of now, there's only a requirement for maintenance personnel, aircraft maintenance personnel, right, to undergo the English language test, right? So apart from pilots and air traffic controllers, only aircraft maintenance personnel need to basically undergo the English proficiency test, right, before they actually proceed to the next level of achieving their license, right? For other personnel, right, it like I said, it all depends on the organization. So the organizations, some of the organizations or the HR personnel that I spoke to actually mentioned that they actually have the assessments, right, done at the interview stage. So at the interview stage, some of the organizations use CFR tests, some of them use the IQ rubrics, right, and some of them even use ALS. So it actually is not being a requirement yet. So therefore, it all depends on the organization to ensure that their professional or their personnel are competent in English, and also they are good in their communication skills. So is there any unresolved issues, problems, or challenges in its implementation in Malaysia? Right. So in terms of unresolved issues or problems, in terms of pilots and air traffic controllers, right? Most of them, right, they know where do they go to for the test, right? And where do they get the training, right, to improve their proficiency? But for the other groups of personnel, right, like I said, it's either that they get the training from the institutions that they are studying in, or they enroll in some programs to help them to at least meet the minimum proficiency requirement. However, this training or these centers that they go to may not necessarily be the trainers may not necessarily be qualified trainers, right, to prepare them in terms of meeting the requirements that has been set in the IQ rubric. So there are some institutions that are training, right, their students or their trainees, right, using the arts requirements, whereas it's not totally what the trainees may need, right? So it is very important that if the training centers were to conduct the training, they must be actually recognized, right? They must at least be recognized by CAM Malaysia, right? They must be trained instructors in order for them to prepare the trainees, right? Whether if they are cabin crew trainees or aircraft maintenance trainees or ground crew trainees, right? To be able to communicate well as to demonstrate the minimum proficiency that is required. So that is on the part of the issues and problem.
All right, so thank you so much again for the very crystal clear answer. So from the explanation that we could finally understand that different aviation personnel have different language assessment, and the implementation of IQ is like really depending on the organization requirements. So I think due to the time constraint, I was just going to ask the last question for today's Q&A. So the third question is, as observed in most job vacancies advertisement, like we know that employers would demand English language communication skills and proficiency for recruiting the new talents. So the question is, what makes English communication skills in aviation similar and or different from other fields? And is being proficient in English alone is enough for ones to excel professionally at aviation workplace setting?
All right. So what makes English communication skills in aviation similar or different from other fields, right? So there's not much difference, I would say, right? Because the use of plain English is still required. However, what makes the communication different is because of the use of the standard phraseology, right? So in terms of communicating, the trainees or the personnel must be able to use the standard phraseologies, to use the vocabularies, the jargons, the terminologies when they are discussing, right, work-related matters, right? But when it comes to discussing or when it comes to communicating on other matters, right? For example, matters that concerns the management, matters that concerns their personal development, then perhaps they will have to be able to communicate using plain English, right? So, like I said in my previous slide, there is a need, right, for balance between the knowledge on standard phraseology, how to use this standard phraseology, jargon and vocabulary, right, so that your message is being clearly communicated, right? So it's not sufficient to just being able to demonstrate your knowledge on jargons and terminologies, but you don't know how to construct a sentence using the standard phraseology. You don't know how to construct a sentence using the jargons and the terminology. So you must be able to use both, right? Plain English and aviation English, right? When you are communicating. Now, is being proficient in English alone is enough for one to excel professionally at aviation workplace setting? Yes, definitely. So proficient here could actually reflect, proficient here actually is the word, right? So what level of proficiency that is sufficient, right, is also depending on the organization. So like I said just now, in most organizations, right? And they follow the requirement of ICAO, whereby level 4 is operational, right? But there are some organizations that may require their crews, right, to actually achieve level 5 or level 6, right, to enable them to secure their jobs in the industry. So it's definitely important, right? But like I said again, to meet the minimum requirement, right, it's very, very important. But to ensure, of course, to demonstrate better proficiency to achieve level 5 and level 6 will definitely be an added advantage, right? So that's my answer to your last question.
All right. So again, thank you so much. So now we know the importance of plain English, which is the general English, is necessary in aviation. And not even just that, we also need the specific jargons then that will determine whether we could function well or not at the workplace setting in the aviation industry. So with that, I guess that is the end of the second session for Aviation English. And thank you so much again to Dr. Rashminda Kaur for the very insightful, interesting, and informative sharing. And I would now give the floor to Brother Farouk to start the third session. Please welcome.
All right, thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum to all panelists, teachers, students, and all of the respected persons that are in our webinar. Now, I would like to introduce my panelist, Mr. Muhammad Hafiz Madni Khan from Pakistan. On this great panel to have some words on skills, learner skills and language development for the success of tourism and hospitality. He did his MA English along with MA ELT from Namal University, Islamabad. He did his MPhil in linguistics. He is a well-known scholar of Islam, as well as he did Hifz and Shahadatul Almiya. He has written many articles on the subject of ESP. I hope we will learn from his words a lot. Please welcome Dr. Mr. Muhammad Madni Khan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank the International Islamic University, the deans and the heads of the departments of Arabic and English, and particularly Dr. Lily for giving me an opportunity to speak in this opening panel. It is great honor, especially as I am more than most people unqualified to do so. Indeed, I was very doubtful whether I should speak at all. Perhaps I should just have left it all to the experts and specialists. However, as a humble student of English and a bit Arabic, I would like to share my ordinary thoughts with you people. The purpose of sharing these notions is to learn from the great scholars of English and Arabic departments of Islamic University of Malaysia. Let's start with the definition of ESP. I will go for just a brief introduction of ESP or all these things, and after that we'll come towards our particular topic. First of all, English, as you know, it has become a lingua franca. English has become the internationally accepted language of almost all the fields of knowledge. Depending on their specific needs and requirements, new learners who know specifically why they need English, actually they must know particularly why they need English in this modern era. Or every learner must know that. In some cases, people with inadequate proficiency in English need to need to be taught to handle some specific jobs. To fulfill the needs of these new learners, new specific courses were designed and introduced. ESP is one of these, specific courses. And from early 1960s, ESP has come up as one of the major sectors of EFL, English as Foreign Language teaching today. Various universities across the world are offering a number of ESP courses nowadays. For example, English for chemist, English for educationist, English for advertisement, English for media. Types. Now we will go for the different types. So basically, just brief introduction of all these types for ESP. As David Carter identifies 3 types of ESP. According to him, English as a restricted language of a pilot or a writer. Number 2, English for academic and occupational purposes. Number 3, English with specific topics. Now we come towards here, what is tourism and hospitality, like that. To tourism, it is defined, it is described as an activity that is served by a number of here industries such as hospitality and transport. Then we have its type of domestic tourism. Tourism concerned with people taking holidays, short breaks, and trips in their own countries. Number 2, we have another type of tourism that is called outbound tourism. That concerned with people leaving their country of residence to visit another country. That is called outbound tourism. Then we have inbound tourism, concerned with people entering a country other than their own, you can say. And now we come towards hospitality. What is hospitality? This term is being used more often to refer to hotel and catering, housing, food, and beverage services. And according to some great scholar, hospitality industry covers catering at conferences and meeting, hospitals, prisons, schools, universities, university hostels, and company canteens, you can say that. Now, what are the skills which are needed, which are required for a learner, especially in tourism and management? First of all, a learner must know what customer service skills. 1. Number 2, having cultural awareness. Number 3, communication skills. Number 4, multitasking skills. Number 5, work ethics. Next one, number 6, that is maintaining. Yes, next slide, if you can share. Next one, hospitality, you're done. Yes, this one. And the next one is maintaining professionalism. The next one is qualifications and education. And what is customer service skills? Actually, ability to meet the expectations of the customer. Number 2, you need to make sure that your customers are satisfied, happy with the services that they receive from you people. Number 4, next one, be polite in front of customer. That is required in hospitality, And the next one is having cultural awareness. What does it mean, having cultural awareness? In hospitality, a large percentage of the customers you will face will be from abroad. To this means working with people from a variety of cultural backgrounds. It means that ability to be culturally aware and adapt to attitudes and norms that are different from your own is crucial. It's crucial to building a successful career. Important, again, it is also important that you have culture sensitivity and awareness. Next one, we say, next slide, communication skills are required for this. That is our basically point here in terms of learning English. Strong communication is highly valued. especially when it comes to tourism and hospitality. Every day, you will work with people from many backgrounds and ages, nationalities and temperaments. People will be having different temperament, different norms, different customs. You have to face at work. Next one, you need to communicate clearly and well. Next is here multitasking skills. What does it mean? It means ability to multitask and handle several tasks at once will serve you well. Learning how to prioritize and manage your time effectively, while you will also need to be able to handle pressure and remain cool and calm when things get chaotic. What is work ethic? What are the work ethics? You will spend most of your time on your feet and you will be working really long shifts. Even then, you will have to ensure that you maintain a positive and vibrant outlook when it comes to customer. There is no need to get irritated. The next one is management professionalism. It is important that all the time, at all time, you remain highly professional, keeping cool attitude and not reaching negatively when dealing with an angry or irritated customer or irate customer, you can say. Next one is qualifications and education. You can easily opt for hotel management online programs that can help you get the right qualifications required to establish yourself in this industry. Then we can say role of English in tourism sector. That is the key point here. Role of English. Next slide. We can go for next one, Farooq. The role of English in tourism sector. Look, what is the role of English in tourism sector? Number one, English is a language that makes the communication easier. Number two, English grants one ability to create effective internal and external communication. Number three, English is a language that gives the ability to its speaker to motivate international tourists. It has become, as we know, it has become a lingua franca. It has become the language of the world. Next one is number four. English means services of excellence, faster, and will increase long-term benefits for any country, any tourist country, especially Malaysia, Indonesia, or other countries. Next one is role of English in tourism sector. What again we have to continue that. That is, it also increases economic progress of the community. Why is English required? Why is English needed in the sector of tourism and industry? We are going to answer those questions. It increases economic progress of the community. It also reduces the number of unemployment because the sector of tourism gets larger and it can adapt a number of people. It can hire a number of people over there in that sector. It also the sector of tourism also gives us understanding, gives us comprehension, gives us apprehension to understand different cultures. As you know, different people come from different countries and they share their culture, their good norms, whatsoever. Sometimes we learn from them, sometimes they learn from us. That understanding different cultures. So this is understanding different cultures also comes under the category of the sector of tourism and hospitality. Another one is it also makes able to provide better services in tourism. For example, the role of English is what? If you know English well, if your English is better, if you can communicate really well, it makes you able to provide better services in tourism. Well, most of the tourists are foreigners. So, they are different. Maybe if some tourists are from Pakistan, Pakistani people are unable to speak Malaysian language. In the same way, they are also unable to speak Urdu language in the way we have a mean here another language in between state, that is English. So now we can come towards, if a person does not know English, what kind of, in tourism sector, what kind of problem arise? What kind of problems arise? Number one is transportation problem. It can be a general one, but we can say if misunderstanding, that can also create such a problem. In tourism, we have the problem, transportation problem, and lack of parking around tourism attraction like historical places. Number two, dangerous positions of many roads, like different countries, like if you talk about India, Rajasthan is there, which can cause accident historically. Or it also in Punjab, Pakistan, Lahore, there is also a traffic jam in outside the historical places. And what another problem we face generally as a tourist, that is shortage of accommodation. Different ranks of hotels and tourism facilities according to the financial abilities of tourists are a very important factor in tourism development. Due to lack of facility, a number of hotels at a cheaper rate. Lack of quality, 3-star hotels, and the tourism policy provides higher tax incentives to setting up 5-star hotels than to 3-star hotels. Another problem is in tourism, lack of tourist reception centers. Sorry, lack of tourist reception centers. Lack of tourist reception centers which provide the basic information about the tourist destination. Another problem is lack of hygienic food. The tourists who come, who visit your country, sometime if we are not prepared for that purpose, we have to such type of problem tourists have to face. Lack of hygienic food service is also one of the major problem in different countries. Another one is non-availability of the regional and continental dishes is also a big problem. And next one is lack of betterment communication facility. What is mean here? Poor telecommunication, limited internet accessibility in some regions, difficulty of international calling. This creates a sense of isolation amongst the tourists. They feel being deprived or cut off from their near and dear ones. Next point is seasonality. It's a particular season which attracts the people to visit such type of places. Hot weather creates a lot of problem for visiting tourists. So many tourists who are not used to such type of climatic change, situations, conditions, find this stay very tough. So it is we who have to provide have better facilities for all. Here we have discussed some the problems in tourism sector, and we also discuss some important points. English is necessary for tourism sector and its betterment. So now we come towards different questions. You can say if you want to discuss you can ask simply a question on this so we can answer them. Should I continue, or you wanna ask questions? Can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you. Brother Farouk, are you there? I think you need to unmute your microphone.
Is a question from your side. These are the questions which are written on the basis of slides. You can ask question from your side.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
yes, it's very
Okay.
clear.
Okay. Mr. Muhammad Madani, Dr. Muhammad Madani, as you already mentioned that it's all about, tourism for general purposes. Have you described some points on specific purposes? How can we define, how can we describe for specific purposes? How can we go for specific purposes? I mean, if we have to offer a program for tourism, what will be that program for, in your opinion? I mean, what kind of skills that students or learners need to excel in that skills, that they will excel in that field and can get good feedback?
Yes, the first point is your question is that what are the skills which are required for students to develop for the sector of tourism? You want to say that. Basically, English, you are talk about the importance of English and skills. The first skills is communication skills, oral and communication skills, oral and listening skills are really important or required for this sector. I mean, if English actually serves a variety of functions in tourism, students must learn oral and listening skills. If they don't have oral if they don't have oral and listening skills, they cannot enter the sector of tourism. Actually, what is the oral or listening skill? What do I mean by that? The oral and listening skills mean interpersonal communication skills, including handling telephone inquiries, spatial listening skills. These all are necessary in understanding accents, tones, intonations, and destination guides, mode of transportation, online ticketing, online, hotel reservations, and composing appropriate and accurate email messages and texts, dealing with tourists and co-workers in various situations. This, first of all, student must have these skills, oral and listening skill. Number two, the student must have the other pair of language as well, that is writing skills. He must have writing skills, because if that student wants to enter in the sector of tourism, in that case, he must develop this skill, writing skills as well. Because writing skill, what is the function of writing skills in tourism? As you know, drafting of, travel brochure. If you are a manager, your draft, actually your brochure, your brochures and your drafts represent what kind of company you are running, that draft, and vocabulary and lexical items. These all skills are required for a students to develop, for a students to better, for a student to sharpen these skills if he wants or she wants to enter in, the field of tourism. Have I answered your question, or should I go further? Should I tell you?
If all these skills are needed, then what will we offer a course for them?
Yes, course basically again is ESP, as it is the mode of our debate today. English for specific purpose. So it can be, simply you can go for different skills, different things course that it can be based on, this textbook, particularly on tourism, English for tourism purposes, ETP, we can call it English for tourism purpose. You can go for that. And in that course, what should be there? Characteristics and features of ETP. Basic features and basic characteristics of ETP, English for tourism purpose, not ESP now, because ESP has become now ETP. English for tourism purpose. What you have to do in that, you have to organize a course. One of the important steps to achieve a satisfying goal is organizing the ESP course. There are many factors that play a crucial role in organizing the ESP course. Without them, the learning process would not lead to effectiveness. In ESP law, or we can call it ETP, the term specific refers to specific purpose for which English is learned, and teachers are required to be familiar with. The teachers have to be able to find a good response to what Waters has described in as language description. He said, in fact, there are some questions that emerge from the language description. What do the student need to learn? What topic areas are needed to be covered? Basically, that is the question in ESP. So we have to organize a course for ETP, English for tourism. Learning style then matter. Learning style for the tourism, travel, and hospitality are different from other English programs. Okay, according to one scholar, I have forgotten his name. A learning style integrates people's effective cognitive and psychological traits. Some people believe that learning style are mainly related to process, learning, perception, organization. What are required? You must first organize the course, and you have to work on course according to the tourism vocabulary. Tourism, some sort of stories, tales, or you can write and you can include a novel or another thing, a short story, which are based on traveling, like Gulliver's Travels, that is based on tourism. Or there are many things, and if we talk about in literature point of view, there are many things, but tourism, you will find many things related to tourism vocabulary over there. In any story that is based on traveling, you can add in your course. Learning style, or in other thing we have to see, the age of the students. What type of students are going to learn this course? If they are at college level, there'll be a different course. And learning styles, I was talking about selecting material. That is very important. You have to select a material according to the need of the students. Here
Sorry, is it just me or is it?
Hello?
Farooq, you can hear my voice?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe let us wait for Dr. Matni again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now can. Very clear.
Yes. Yes, Farooq. Did I answer your question? You want to ask something else?
Yeah. So you have explained very good. If we talk about tourism in ESP, then we have offer a course that you already described about that. We have to look for vocab, look for different context. But besides this, I want to ask something. In a very general form, but in a different way. You already said English plays a very important role in the industry of tourism and hospitality. Then let us know what aspects of English language are essentials for the students.
Yes, as I discussed here, basically English as a whole, because first of all, oral and listening skills, we discussed on that. Oral speaking and listening skills are very important. On the other hand, we discussed that
So actually my question was not completed. And the problem encountered, what was the aspects of English language are essential, and what are the problems encountered by the employees or learners in a different field?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Your question is, what are the problems?
What are the aspects of English language are essential for the students, and what are the problems encountered by the tourism employees in different field of work?
Okay, first of all, I would like to answer your second part, then we will go first, because first we have already answered. Okay, first of all, I'm going to answer your second part. That is problems encountered by tourism employees and different fields in the work. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I was just saying there are several problems encountered by the tourism industry in communicating in English, which is most of them affected their speaking skill. Number one, I'm going to be very, very specific. The problems are categorized the following topics, such as to greet appropriately. Many workers do not know how to greet because they don't know the culture of that person. They don't greet appropriately. Number two, explaining the accommodation. If a person does not know English, so that person, that workers is unable to explain the accommodations comprehensively. If it is also actually, if his English is good, he can explain the accommodation comprehensively and briefly. Number three, if a person does not know English, that employee, he is unable to describe the facilities which his hotel or restaurant provides. He is unable to explain that, describe that. Number four, it is also showing around the areas. He cannot be a good guide. He cannot lead. He cannot guide the people. If he cannot guide the tourists, foreigners, if he is unable, if he doesn't know how to speak English, so that will create problem for that employee. Number five, he cannot receive reservation on phone, as I was saying, online booking, online reservation. So if that employee faces that problem, if he does not know English. Number six, another thing is if a person is unable to speak English, that employee, that worker cannot explain hotel services and his restaurant. And other thing is, he is also unable to deal with complaints and giving solution. He cannot describe the area's attractive places. He cannot be a good guide. These all are the things. These problems actually occurred due to lack of English skills. Therefore, all tourism personnel is required to have a high level of English communication skill to be efficient in doing their duties. Yes. Have I answered?
Okay, Dr. Madni. I think you already answered in a very explanation. But the problem we are facing as problem that we are seeing that if a person knows the language of that country, I mean, if we are talking about Malaysia, it's in Malay language. I mean, if he knows, if he is Pakistani, he's coming from Pakistan, he already know Malay, and he can talk in Malay language also. then what do you think about that?
Basically, if we are talking about not Urdu and Mali language, we are actually talking about the role of English in tourism. So if we are not talking about our personal, our two countries' language, we are actually talking about the language of the world. English is Mali, or I'm not going to, I hope I'm not going to criticize. Basically, our languages are limited or restricted to our areas. So we have to learn a language. We need a language that that can be a bridge between among different cultures, and that is the language of English. If English is a lingua franca, that can be a source of that can be a source of that can be a source of communication or interaction. If a person knows Urdu, if a person knows Mali, he personally he can get benefits. Personally, he can get benefit. Or if a person does not know English, he cannot be a good employee, because if you are at hotel management, you are a worker at hotel management or a restaurant, so it will be very difficult for you for you to interact with all these people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madni, for this answer. And my last question is, as you know, you are Hafiz Quran, and actually I want to know about the hospitality ethics, norms, and factors about hospitality and tourism. I mean, if we talk about Islam, we talk about Islamic norms, Islamic ethics, what do you think about that? How we correlate them with hospitality and issues?
Basically, it is a very general question. Islam gives a lot of importance to hospitality and tourism. So if we talk about hospitality, the last prophet, Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "La khayra fi man la yuzif." There is no goodness in that man who does not have hospitality. If a person is not a good host, so you cannot see it means that person is not a good person if he is not a good host. So that is the hadith. On another occasion, our beloved prophet said, "Whoever believe in Allah and the last day, let him honor his guest. Let him honor his guest with full hospitality." They said, "What is full hospitality?" The Sahaba, the companion of the Holy Prophet, said, "What is hospitality? What is full hospitality? O Messenger of Allah, what is full hospitality?" The Holy Prophet replied, "Full hospitality is 1 day and 1 night. And hospitality is for 3 days and 3 days. And anything beyond that is charity towards him." That is the main importance of hospitality in Islam. Hospitality is very necessary. And if you talk about the ethics of tourism, in Islam, so Islam, as you know, Qatar is the perfect example of all these things, how Qatar has, received his all guests. So here you can see how these people, how have they received their guests, how have they welcomed their foreigners, guests over there. If I talk about the characteristics of Islamic tourism, I can just give you some finger tips, like what is Islamic tourism? That is free from immortality, number one. Number two, maintain security and comfort for people. Number three, orientation of common good. You must talk about what goodness all the time, as this country is, striving to do good. What Qatar is struggling to do that goodness. Being in that, although that's a sport, but in that sport, that country is showing its culture as well. That is, maintain security and comfort, orientation of good common good, respect for social and cultural values. They are doing over their level best. and local wisdom, or you can say what all the time mean prefer, respect others' culture, and they are also doing. They say do respect and have respect. This is, and then is Islamic consumption values are different in this case. Like we say, like halal food in accommodation and in flights, no alcohol, halal entertainment, separate facilities for men and women, or you know, a facility for personal hygiene, or not being exposed to haram. All these are the ethics of Islam. There are a lot. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much,
Am I audible?
Dr. Madni.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Actually, it's all.
Do
Sorry?
you want to say a question? Yes. If one thing which I want to answer, one point was there, the importance of learning. I was just, before this, I was just talking about the importance of learning English. But here, in the end, I would like to say the importance of learning elegant English, not just English, elegant English for hospitality and tourism. The hospitality and tourism industry requires high-level professional English. Guests are usually tourists and business travelers. They are well versed in the language. They also expect what? They also expect the mean here what? They also expect the same from the people they interact with in the industry. Okay, thus it is necessary to learn proper and elegant English for hospitality and tourism. You might be wondering why elegant. Maybe this is because you simply cannot talk in slang and casual language to your guests. They pay for exceptional service, so they expect above average communication skills as well. At the minimum, you need to speak business English. Okay, and there are some other reasons. What? Yes, I'm going to answer your question as now some things coming in my mind. Like what clarity? More than anything, you need it for clarity purposes. Communicating clearly is the key to understanding each other. Proper grammar and tenses make a difference. You need to respond in a professional and clear manner that directly answers your guest question. Good comprehension and clarity in response go hand in hand. Number two, reputation. Knowing high-level English also speaks about the reputation of the company you represent. Whether you have your own travel agency or you are employed in a hotel, the way you communicate reflects the status of your company. Being knowledgeable of the nuance of the English language gives you a what? Commendable reputation as an employee or a business owner. Next point, respect. Excellent communication skills also command respect. It shows your experience and expertise in the use of language. The way you communicate also shows the level of authority you have on behalf of the company you represent as well. A rank and file employee would most likely shut up and use the basic English words, but a hotel manager would speak fluently using more advanced terms. And second last point, opportunities. Having a good grasp of the English language opens a lot of career and business opportunities. It gets you up easily for a promotion as the industry demands brilliant communicators. Building rapport with clients and guests is vital in the hospitality and tourism industry. And this can be done through excellent communication. If you can do this, the possibilities are endless for you. Moreover, if you can converse eloquently in English, you will be able to negotiate the transact effectively for your business. You can easily conquer language or communication barriers with confidence. By leveraging your professional and elegant English skills, you can win your business partners and associates to buy into your ideas. Learning excellent and elegant English is a must in the hospitality and tourism industry. If you think your skill level is just average and you would like to advance your career, then you need to invest in yourself. Get trained, learn English. There are many language courses for English. I mean, in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, England, America. You can go for that. Getting professional instruction will not only sharpen your skills, but also boost your confidence. So this is all from my side, man. If you have any question, you can. Yes, Farooq, can you hear me?
Yes, is all done?
Yeah, you speak. Your microphone is off.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Any
Clearly.
question from your side? You can.
No, actually, I don't have a question. Have you done already, or you want to say something? Hello?
No, it's done. It's I have done from my side. It is.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Madni. As our panelist in our... Sorry, actually your voice is not clear.
For
actually your voice is not clear. Hello?
No, I don't have any question. If you have any question,
okay.
You can. You are welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Madni. As our panelist in International Islamic University from International Islamic University, we are highly appreciated for your concern that you have time for us, and we are having you as our panelist because I know there is time variation in Pakistan, and you suffered a lot with time variation to join this webinar. I'm really very thankful personally and by the behalf of my class fellows, teachers, that we are very thankful to you that you have time for us. Thank you very much. As ESP and tourism, we will talk about. We are talking about in ESP and tourism. Sorry.
You are welcome. Thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to learn from the great scholars of your university and having interaction with great people like two speakers. They have done a great job, mashallah. They were really great scholar. I learned a lot from them. So convey my best feelings or all these ideas to them. Okay, so they were really great scholar. I have learned from you people. So so thank you.
No, actually, it's your are not accepting our colleague. Thank you. But ESP and tourism, I want to explain briefly a little bit more that add something in this. That if we talk about ESP, especially English for specific purposes in tourism, then we must know about the tourism industry, tourism problems, tourism needs, about all things. And if I think, in my opinion, Doctor, you already answered all that question, and we don't have such kind of question. If from audience or someone wants to ask question, then it's an open webinar. You can ask from Dr. Madni. Is anyone have question? Then you can ask. If you don't have, then I will go for conclusion, and I will hand over my moderator to Isiana.
All right, so thank you so much, Brother Farooq, our third moderator. And again, thank you so much to our third guest speaker, Dr. Mohammed Madni, for sharing a very insightful sharing on English for tourism. So we are indeed very honored to have our respected speakers with us. We have Dr. Zalina Kamat again, and we have Dr. Rashminda Kaur and Dr. Muhammad Madni. So a little bit of recap for what we have learned from them. So in terms of advertising English, we learn how companies' backgrounds influence the marketing styles. And when we listen to Dr. Rashminda Kaur's presentation just now, then we are exposed to the different needs or to the needs of critical communication skills in addition to plain English and standard phraseology in the aviation industry. And for the last session just now, we learned about the importance of English in handling the complex nature of tourism industry. So I believe that we really learned a lot. And before we end our session today, let us have a quick photography session. So I guess to all of the participants and all the audience, you're encouraged to open your camera, and we have sent the background image with you in the WhatsApp group so that you can use that background image and open your cameras so that you can see your beautiful smiles and we can capture the moments together. Okay. Give me a minute. All right. So ready, set, and smile. All right, freestyle. 1, 2, 3. All right, so that is all. So again, I guess that is the end of the webinar today. Thank you so much for everyone who's participating, and thank you so much to our respected guest speakers. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, and have a nice day, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, students. Thank you, audience. Thank you, all the panelists.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to our guest audience. Thank you very much.
So do we have to stay here? Easy?
I think we can also like
Keep the group,
Zoom. Yep. All right.
Okay,
See you around.